Hey, Bastich B out for 64K and welcome to another episode of How To. On today's episode, I'm going to show you how to play a classic text adventure game.
Welcome to 64K. Hosted by Bastich B.
Hey, welcome back. Like I said earlier, this video is about classic text adventure games. Now, this video is definitely intended for newbies, so if you know nothing about the genre, just like all the how-to series, then this video is going to be for you. So the classic text adventure games, or text graphic adventure games like this one here, they flourished in the 80s and they kind of burnt out by the mid-90s. There was pretty much nobody making these things anymore. It's a pity. They're kind of like reading a novel. You read description, you write in what you want to do, and game continues. Sometimes they have graphics, sometimes they don't. I'm by no means an expert in the genre. I've just played a lot of these games back in the day. So I've got a little list here of all the most useful commands that you're going to use in these type of games to get you going on the genre. So let's jump right into it. Yeah, so for this example, I'm going to load up a game called Scapegoat. By level 9, they made a bunch of awesome text adventure games, text graphic adventure games, depending on if you played these games on disc or tape. Bear in mind, like a game like Scapegoat, if you played it on tape, you're not going to get any graphics. But if you played it on disc, you will get graphics, so bear that in mind when you're going to go into the genre. Not all games are like that. But anyway, so I'm going to use the Commodore 64 today because that's my PC of choice. But these games, this whole genre was available on all systems at the time. From PC to like Atari, ST, Amiga, Spectrum, you name it. The genre was everywhere. And as you can see, Scapegoat is almost loaded. I'm playing it on the Commodore 64. But like I said earlier, all the commands I'm about to give you, this will work on all different formats. So this isn't restricted to this system. The commands are universal for all these games. They never really change them. They work on almost every single text adventure game. So you can get into it really easy if you just know these commands. Okay, so as soon as you get into one of these games, you're going to have a description of your area. You'll sometimes have graphics that will be shown. This is restricted to obviously the graphic adventure games. There's no difference between graphic adventure games and text adventure games. The other one just has graphics to help you like visualize what you've seen. Yeah, the text adventure games are just more minimalistic. Anyway, I prefer the graphic text adventure games. It gives a little bit more personality as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, so as soon as you start, you'll see a description of what is happening in the scene. And it's usually, there's a lot of keywords in there that can help you get going. Okay, so I've narrowed it down to about 7 keywords that you're going to need to know to play this genre of gaming. Obviously, there's a lot of other ones you should know, but this will definitely get you going on these types of games. So after the game is loaded or you get started on the game, it's going to obviously have a description. It's going to show you, it's going to explain like what is happening in the scene. It's usually like, it's from your point of view, it's usually like your inner monologue. Not all the time, depending on the game. But anyway, so this one, you're at the grave. The story for this game is that you die, you're a detective, and you get killed in the line of duty. And you're a ghost now, and you're at your own cemetery, and you're watching your own funeral, and you've got to try and solve your crime. Sounds familiar to a Square Enix game that came out a few years ago. Anyway, so the first command I'm going to teach you is look. Now, for most of these games, you can just type the first letter of these 7 words that I'm going to tell you. So for look, you can just type L and then press return, and you're going to get the results. Not all of them work like that. 90% of them, I would say, work like that. So anyway, we're just going to write look and return. So once I do that, it'll give you the description of the area. This is super important. You're going to want to, every time you move to a new place, you're going to want to look. It's going to give you, like I said earlier, keywords maybe, and then for those keywords you can try examining them further. Command number 2 is examine. Now you're going to want to use this word a lot. Any little thing you find in the game, you're going to want to examine it. Anything you read when you do look and it says like there's a chest on the floor, you're going to want to examine it. It basically just gives you more detail of an object that's in the scene. So over here in this game we got my tombstone, so I want to examine it so I can see a little bit more detail about it. Examine tombstone. So that'll give me a little bit more detail about it. It says it's of polished marble, completely useless information. And yeah, it's commands 3, 4, 5, and 6. These are super important. You know, when you first start playing these games, you're going to be, wait a minute, how do I move around in this world? I'm not using the joystick, and you don't use the cursor keys either. So it works on a compass system. You know, north, south, east, west. So just like the other ones, you can just press N for north, or S for south, or E for east, or you can write them out. Most of the games just accept that if you press N, it's going to mean north. So let's check out this. Let's try go north here, just push N. You can see where that takes us. And as you can see, I'm moving north. I floated north and was by Joe Danby's grave. So yeah, I've moved on to the next location. So I would suggest if you're gonna play this genre of game, you're gonna definitely need to grab a piece of paper and a pen, and you're gonna have to kind of block these games out in like a grid fashion. Grid paper is obviously the best, just like an old dungeon crawler, because it can get really confusing as to where you're going and whereabouts you are or where a location is. But if you just grid it out like one move at a time, go north, see where that goes, give a description, go east and see if it's blocked, you know, that kind of thing. It's the best way to play these games. It also gives you a good visual reminder or a visual map in your head as to where the hell you are going. Let's try another direction, try east, see where that takes us. Okay, so this is a good example here. I couldn't go that way. Exits lead north, south, southwest, west, and northwest. So a lot of these games, if you get to a dead end also, they will give you a description of what directions you can go, which is pretty helpful. Not all of them did that. Most of them I would say didn't. But this game is pretty helpful, and it's just giving you an idea of like what direction you can go, so you don't have to just keep mashing different directions until you got somewhere. Okay, so as you gain around these worlds, you're going to be picking up stuff. That's another useful word, pick up. Anything you see, try to pick it up. Probably going to be using it in some sort of puzzle or some sort of way. So now, how do you look at what you have on you? So this word, inventory, you're going to have to use that. Usually, as in most of these games, like I said, you can press R. In Scapegoat, I think you have to write it all fully out. Inventory. Now, seeing as I'm a ghost, I don't have anything right now, so you owe nothing at all. So that's just an example, but when you're going around the world, you use words like pick up or grab or something like that, and you'll grab the object. And then if you get to some sort of puzzle or you want to examine something further, you just type inventory, and it's going to give you a rundown of all the items you have on you. It's also of note is if it says something like you are wearing a coat or you're doing this, you should probably examine your pockets. Even though you haven't picked up anything in the game, there might be something in your pockets. They're pretty sneaky that way. You might have an ID or a gun, you never know. So you should probably check yourself out as well. It's also part of the game. Some more useful words to know are save and restore. So if you want to save your game at any point, just write save, and then you're going to have a blank disc on hand for the Commodore anyway. If you're playing it on cassette, you're going to have a spare cassette lying around. save your game, and then if you load up the game again, you just write restore. Some more useful words like pick up or use. You're going to be using all those kinds of things very often. Now, the important thing to remember about these games is that they are very old and cranky, so when you're typing out your descriptions of what you want to do, you got to keep it very simple. Like, don't try and make convoluted sentences like I want to pick up an axe and use it on the door to break it. Don't write something like that. Just write pick up axe, and then the next sentence try something like hit door or something like that. That's probably not going to work. But bear in mind, like, keep the words very simple. Like, try and use like 2 or 3 keywords, and you're going to have much better results that way. A good example of keeping things simple to get good results is I played this game called The Incredible Hulk back in the day. Marvel licensed a whole bunch of graphic text adventure games to be made. Anyway, there was a series, there was a Fantastic Four one, there was a Spider-Man one. Anyway, I played the Hulk one, and it starts you off in this room, and you're Hulk and you tie to a chair, and that's it. There's like, you can look and do stuff, but you feel like, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm tied up, no solution, I can't move anywhere. And this was a real it's a real brain teaser for ages. Me and my friend were stuck in this room forever. Anyway, we've eventually figured out that you're gonna have to make Hulk angry, so he hulks out big time, and then you'll like break the chair and break the ropes or whatever. So in order to accomplish this, we tried everything under the sun. Eventually we tried, I don't even know how, but we tried bite lip. Yes, the solution to this problem was bite lip. You bite your lip, Hulk gets angry, because even a normal person, when you bite your lip, you get kind of angry, so it kind of makes sense. Not really. But anyway, that was the solution. He hulks out and you break free of the ropes and the chair. So, there are some really funky puzzles in these games. I'm not sure what the creators were thinking, but that's just a rare example of a really bizarre one. If you ever play that game, that's how you get going on it. Another important note to remember about playing these games is that most of them are kind of turn-based, if you can think about it that way. You can take as long as you want on any sort of puzzle, as long as you want on reading anything. There's no like time restrictions. As soon as you press north, you're going to go north, and that's just going to progress the story. You don't have to worry about anything. There are a bunch of these games though that work in like sort of real time. Now, real time, when I mean real time, I mean when you make a move, something else is going to be happening in the world. So things are moving in different directions. Now, example of this is Scapegoat. This game, every time you make a move, something else happens in this world. So you got to bear that in mind when you want to solve puzzles and looking for characters. Another example of a game that works in this fashion is The Hobbit. Over here, I got the Tolkien trilogy. Anyway, so this game, it works in real time as well. So every time you move, something else happens, and this, The Hobbit, for example, is it's very strict on that kind of thing. You can die very quickly if you're not following somebody, keeping up with Gandalf. You'll get sidetracked, and you'll get lost, and you'll die, and this game is hard. You'll die every second. So if you're playing this thing, you better like save it a lot. But that's an example of a game that's working with like some sort of real-time mechanics. And also because these games were text adventure games, a lot of the lore of the game and the background story in that wasn't explained in the actual game. If you bought the original, here is Guild of Thieves for the Amiga. This was made by Magnetic Scrolls. If you ever see the name Magnetic Scrolls on a text adventure, you know you're in for a good time. This is my personal favorite text graphic adventure game. The reason I mention this is that these games usually came with tons of like feelies, inserts and little maps and stuff like that. It kind of fleshed out the story much better. So if you're going to play bootlegs, you're going to be missing out on like quite a lot of the substance of these games. So you definitely want to try and maybe like pick up originals of at least the ones that you find really, really interesting. Go play a whole lot of bootlegs and see what you really, really like. That's how I found out about Guild of Thieves, like back in the day. Eventually ended up getting a physical copy of it, and then it comes with all this cool stuff, and I'll show you. So he has a few things from the Guild of Thieves box. He has like this letter of approval or recommendation, like when you join the guild. The game is about robbing things, so this is your induction to the Guild of Thieves, so you can read that. It's pretty cool. Gives you a lot of background info. Also comes with this like kind of old school like kind of newspaper. If you read this, you find out a lot about the actual game. Tons and tons of pages. It's also got like a mini walkthrough for the beginning of the game to help you get started if you get stuck. So this is like really good quality. Tons of like tips and information hidden in all this kinds of stuff. It also comes with your Guild of Thieves ID, which I thought was pretty cool. You can write your name there, and a bunch of other stuff. So if you're a newbie to the genre, I would definitely suggest trying out the graphic text adventure games. You know, they're a little bit easier to get into. You got a visual representation of what's happening on the screen, and you know, written description. It just makes it a little bit easier. I would definitely suggest starting off those. When you get a little bit better at those, I would definitely suggest, if you want to go for just pure text adventure games, anything by Infocom. They have a ton and tons of good stuff. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Leather Goddesses of Phobos, a whole bunch of games like that. All of those are very, very cool. Also now with the internet, you can, you're never really going to get stuck in these games. You can just go search something. If you get really confused or stuck, help is always just like a few keystrokes away. You know, when we used to play these, like way back, you know, if you got stuck, you were screwed. You just had to like power through it until you eventually found a way. It was difficult. These games are difficult. You know, it's going to take you a little while to get into them, but once you do, you're going to find a really rewarding genre that you may not know even existed. Okay, thanks for joining me, Bastich B at 64K. I hope you had a good time. I hope you found out a little bit more about text adventure gaming. If you could like and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. And I'll see you next time for another episode of How To. Cheers!